talking beer technology.
No, we're not.
What's up, Evan? All right, I'm gonna turn the music down for a little bit. You guys enjoy some more beer. Enjoy these guys talking about beer.
Oh, I'm okay.
And if you have your phone, I think we're being broadcast live on the web. True statement?
You want to watch us?
Yeah,
True statement on the web.
I'm so flushed.
So smile, everybody. Turning it over right now.
Hey, Firk.
Hello. And welcome.
Hey, FirkFest. How we doing? Woo! I said, how we doing, FirkFest?
Got some work to do.
Yeah!
I know.
If you don't know us, my name is Matt Becker. We're the Four Brewers, and as always, I am joined by
Jason Harris.
John Holzer. Greg Nagel.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Mr. Greg Nagel for putting on this wonderful festival here.
Everyone applaud Mr. Nagel. He's
Yeah!
Yeah, buddy.
We're very excited because today we have some of the predominant cask ale experts of the greater Los Angeles area. Can I call you guys that? Is that okay?
It's a good word.
You could call me that, or maybe Andy. I wouldn't call, what was your name again?
I don't have a name tag on. I can't remember my own name.
We'll get to him. I'd like to just introduce our panelists here. From MacLeod Ales, we have Mr. C. Andy Black.
Thank you.
Cask Ale LA, we have Mr. Aaron Champion.
Thanks for having me.
From Noble Ale Works, we got Mr. Evan Price.
Hi.
Of Smog City Brewing, we have Chris Wolowski,
Hello, hello.
friend of the show. And our moderator today is going to be Mr. Tomm Caroll of Celebrator and LA Beer Paper.
Okay, cheers everyone. We're going to talk about Cask Ale today. Cool, so let's just get started with a question for everyone on the panel, including the Four Brewers. What, where, and when was your first cask beer that you ever tasted? And what were your impressions, if you can recall?
You remember, Jason? Well, you're on the end here. We can start with you.
We started me all the way over here. Believe it or not, since I'm in the neighborhood, I think probably the first time I ever had a cask beer would have been at the brewery.
Really?
Yeah, it's not very like an authentic. I was in England. No, it was like at the brewery, and they added some spices into a saison on cask on Fridays. I don't know if they still do that. They used to have the cask Fridays.
First working Fridays,
in the olden days. Yeah,
first working Fridays.
That was probably the first cask beer I ever had. I'm a whippersnapper in this field.
You know, for me, I was living in Orange County for a while, and so I was right by Pizza Port San Clemente. I was racking my brain when I saw this question, and
Racking.
Yes. Oh, racking.
Brewer's joke.
Jokes. And so I assume it was some cask at the Pizza Port in San Clemente, and I remember thinking that it was warm and flat and weird. It was not something that I was used to at the time, and that was about as far as I went with it. Obviously, I kind of progressed from them, but that was as far as I got. So, from my first impression. What about you, John?
I have no idea. I don't remember the first cask ale I ever had. I'm sure it was not anything authentic to cask ale.
It was FirkFest last year. Come on.
Probably, yeah, more than likely.
It's actually today.
But yeah, even stuff at the brewery, I haven't had much of anything they've done in casks either, so it's hard to say.
Never like a vanilla Victory at Sea or anything? No?
Not in a cask, no.
Really?
No.
You're weird, man.
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't remember my first one, no.
Cool, well, as the elder statesman here, I go a bit further back, but sadly my memory doesn't. It was in London in 1974, my first trip there. And I was going to say that it was Watney's Red Barrel because it was the only British beer I had heard of then from the Monty Python tourist agent sketch. But as I did some research, Watney's was never on cask. Andy, can you verify that? Do you know? It was derided by being one of the first keg bitters and keg beers that Britain came out with, and everyone, Camera particularly hated it because it was not cask.
Well, it's an older brewery, so they probably had cask prior to switching to.
Right. So
because
if it
Watney's
wasn't
6X is available on cask now. I'm not sure who's brewing it, but Watney's 6X.
Well, this was 1974. Watney's was still around. I think they were doing their Watney's Red. I can't remember
Watney's
which
Red
one
Barrel.
it is or was, but it. If it wasn't that, it was another British beer on tap then, because I was just amazed by all the tap handles. I've never seen handles like that before.
But they actually had to put some serious force into pulling on them.
And my memory is that it was warmer. I I don't remember it particularly being flatter. I just remember, oh yes, the beers are warm in England, like I had heard. But everything was warm in England. I was there in August, and they don't serve ice in their water. And when you buy a can of soda on the street, there is no. It's like room temperature. It's like cask temperature Coke in a
Cask
can.
soda.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. I remember just being thirsty the entire summer there.
Chris, what about you?
My first memory of cask beer, I believe, was at Beechwood, the Seal Beach location. They had a Stone IPA with some hop varietal. And I was like, oh, I like Stone IPA. Oh, I like that new hop varietal. Let's give it a whirl. And I was like, oh boy, this is interesting.
This is weird.
This is a little weird. So, but I remember I drank it, I enjoyed it, and I was like, all right, cask beer, cool.
And he's the prominent producer of Cask Ale amongst us.
I think my first was probably at the Vermont Pub and Brewery, a brew pub in Burlington, Vermont. Brewery started by the kind of well-regarded, well-published, and sadly passed brewer Greg Noonan, who he has like a lot of English beer there, and it must have been there. I remember. I don't remember exactly where it was, but I know having Cask for the first time was kind of a transformative experience for me. It's like with Cask, it can be so hit or miss, and I think I got a hit the first time I tried Cask, and it just blew my mind.
Obviously, put you down a certain path.
Yeah, probably.
Evan, you've been kind of taking charge of Cask Ale in Orange County. Do you remember your first time?
Yeah, so I remember I don't necessarily want to talk too much about my first time of having Cask because I had so many shitty ones.
Well, it's embarrassing for all of us.
No, I know. It's almost like the first like when you lost your virginity and you're
yes, that was the joke I just made.
Oh, you just made that?
Yes.
Oh man, if I could have heard you, that would have probably been pretty funny.
Exactly.
You just killed John.
But I just want to say I told you so to my fellow four brewers guys here.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, we had this conversation before. But
I've been properly scolded.
We'll just yell at each other.
Sorry.
Hey man.
No, so I've been really excited about Cask beer. Brad, who works with me at Noble, we went to England recently, and the first time that I legitimately had a good Cask beer, though, I was 21 and I was in England, and it was Samuel Smith's ESB in London, and I was just like, oh, this is good, and. Every time after that, we made casks at when I worked at BJ's, and they were always fucking overhopped and just super cheesy or whatever else. Take
some beer and put some shit in it.
In the cask?
We put cheeses in the. No, we didn't put any cheeses in there. Anyway, I'll stop, but things have changed and they're pretty fun. I love my mom. Where is she? Mom? Never mind. I don't think she's here.
We could do the best Cask.
Aaron, last but not least.
Yeah, so I'm from Toronto originally. I've only been in LA for 2 years, and Toronto has a weird beer scene that's kind of a very American craft beer and English craft beer. Or English tradition mixed with American craft beer. So there's a lot of kind of British style breweries up there. And the first cask I had was a place called Granite Brewery's Best Bitter, which I remember really liking it at the time. But the first cask that really kind of took notice is a place called Durham County Durham Brewing that was like a Irish red beer, but just perfectly, and actually has a little bit of a hop on it that just kind of perfectly carried it, which isn't very traditional, but really kind of took my notice. I noticed it, and I was like, this is something that's different than anything else I've ever had. So
it made you actually stop and think about it for a second.
Yeah, and I do think that there's the quality in Toronto is probably a little bit higher. People actually care about the tradition a bit more, I think. So you're getting properly conditioned casks. Real ale, more likely, not necessarily just bright filled.
Right.
Cool. So you hear us talking about cask ale and real ale, as it's also known, and I'd venture to guess at least a few of you out there don't really know what that is. So I think it's important that we do a little bit of history on that. And I think on the panel here, Andy and Aaron are the smartest guys on the table here as far as the history of beer, of cask ale. And so I'm wondering if you guys can give a brief description of what it is and where it came from.
Well, real ale, you kind of have to go back a little bit because that is a term that the Campaign for Real Ale, which is kind of the organization in the United Kingdom that can be given all credit for saving cask ale. There are detractors, but that's it's not even part of this conversation. So they saved cask ale, and they came up with a term in the 1970s, real ale, as a means to differentiate what certain people would consider proper cask ale, and to compare it to what was becoming a very popular style, not necessarily popular, but the accountants were making a very popular style of beer in the UK, which was like bright, fine, sterile filtered and pasteurized beer, like Watney's Red Barrel.
In kegs.
Yeah, but they were one of the worst offenders. That's,
right.
They might have made some cask, but they were one of the worst offenders of bad British beer during the time period. And so they came up with this term, and it's kind of hard to figure out from a production side because CAMRA is essentially a consumer advocacy organization, that's fantastic. Like, we need those. But their terminology and some of the things they push for are more from a consumer side than they are from a brewer side. So we're trying to make sense of them, and it becomes a little muddled sometimes. But essentially what they're gunning for with real ale is that it is a beer that's fermented, that is carbonated within the vessel that it will then be served from. So yes, bottle condition would technically be the same thing, but what they're trying to say is that cask needs to be carbonated in the cask. You can't take a bright tank and transfer into the cask after carbonation and call that cask ale. Yes, it's in a cask, but it's not proper cask. It's not real ale.
Yeah, so as opposed to, because one of the things that people will notice in the festival so far is that there are certain beers that are marked real ale, which have that re-fermentation process in the cask itself. Actually, you can go to the Noble station, and they have one that is marked real ale, and then the others are carbonated in another way, or a lot of times you see a lot of just a cask being used to introduce ingredients into a beer that's already been fermented out, that type of thing.
Well, it's a Randall essentially in a lot of cases. It's infusing.
Yeah, I mean, we basically brought the three different examples that you typically will see from most breweries. One being in our best efforts to make a traditional English beer, where it's an English bitter. We call it an English pale ale because it sells better that way. And
you're like, bitter? I don't want bitter.
No, it's ridiculous. I'm not a
God
fan of
forbid
it.
the sales reps have to work harder.
Oh man, or more importantly, the bartenders.
Guys, it's not that bitter. Bitter isn't bitter.
But so we brought that out, and then we did a blend of 3 different IPAs. We literally took it straight from a keg and we put it into a cask. A technique we like to call flash casking in Noble. And at that point, it's like pouring from a growler, a really pretty stainless steel growler with a tap in it.
It's got a faucet on it.
And so anyway, I really like to. I used to do that back in the day every Friday. Whenever we said that we would have a cask every Friday, and I would at 5 o'clock on a Friday, I would say, "Oh shit, I forgot to fill the cask." So that's ended up how it went. And then the last one is a bunch of flavors in a cask, which you'll see a lot of breweries did that today too. And I don't necessarily think that there's something wrong with that, but I'm on the fence.
Okay, that's a great way to look at it. But Aaron, do you have anything to to add?
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually think there's anything wrong with the flavor additions necessarily. I think that there's a lot of great beers here with flavor additions, and I certainly don't. I'm split. I enjoy the traditional aspect of it, but I really do think there's we have to accept that craft beer in the U.S. especially is very experimentation driven.
Dude, are you at like a metal show or something? I feel like you're watching the Black Dahlia murder or something, like doing like demon hands.
Yeah.
I know we're badasses, but like seriously,
Godspeed.
we like Cask Ale.
Well, I would say we.
Distraction.
You wouldn't be involved. Never mind.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. So the experimentation of a lot of the beers that are here I think is great, but sometimes the quality of the beer, the conditioning suffers from the additions that are made. And I think there needs to be a balance that's made. It's like you need to make a good beer first and an experimental beer second. And that's kind of my attitude towards Cask. Is if it's not coming out properly conditioned, then you've kind of failed on the Cask side.
And something that I always like to throw in is that Cask is a huge change in how a beer is served anyway. So why do you need to then throw all this stuff on top of it? Because I think as far as consumer education and providing an experience for consumers, it's really special just to be able to try a well-conditioned beer of your normal range or normal portfolio on Cask. Because those beers are going to be radically changed by having to lower the carbonation level, hopefully raising the temperature a little bit to like 54, and service through either gravity or a beer engine. Those are going to change the beer fundamentally. So to go on top of that and say Cask isn't exciting enough, it's not a perceptive difference enough to add all this other stuff. It makes me kind of hurt a little bit because I feel like we make sacrifices by putting our beers in kegs as a brewery.
Well, but it's always kind of like it's always kind of a give and take though, because I mean one thing that is an advantage of Cask just from the flavor addition thing is the convenience. I mean, as a brewery, I mean, you can take this vessel, put pretty much whatever you want in it, and have a beer and have something interesting for your consumers, especially in your tasting rooms. And so I think there's value in that.
People can do whatever they want. I don't want to be like some sort of asshole like purist about it. Yeah,
well,
it's like people can do whatever they want. It's just like
it's not real Cask beer.
I would really love people to really consider putting their normal beer in a Cask, and because just bringing consumers that experience of trying the beer on Cask. So, like, nothing gets me more excited than thinking about things like the unfiltered DBA or Sierra Nevada Pale Ale on Cask.
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale on Cask is like
that's
incredible.
The coolest thing ever because everyone knows what that beer tastes like. And then you just put it in Cask. It's a really simple
radically
change.
different.
And you taste more of it.
They do it with nitro, right? People will do nitro versions of the beer. They don't change the beer. The serving difference is enough to be a different experience. But in the Cask world, you do see it's used a lot more for flavor additions or experimental.
And a lot of time it's marketing. It's like it's let's get someone into our tap room because of this special thing than necessarily a specific serving style.
It's a real, as far as I can tell, and I haven't been all over the U.S. drinking, but with people I've talked to, it's pretty much a California and Southern California kind of tradition. Because first of all, Cask beer needs to ferment and be served at 55 degrees cellar temperature. We don't have cellars, and it doesn't get 55 degrees except for a few evenings in the winter. So we are the absolute last place where Cask beer would fit in. But what happens, because we started to discover it late, like the whole Southern California, aside from San Diego area, discovered good beer and craft beer, we tend to adapt things. So people start using it as a Randall. And they're getting some pretty interesting results from it. But it isn't real Cask beer. And I think people think, oh, it's on Cask. What did you put in it? What did you put in the cask? It's like, that's not really what Cask beer is about. So it really isn't, for the most part, it isn't real ale unless MacLeod's is doing it or Evan's doing one of those. And there are people that can do it, but they're difficult to do. And they're not convenient at all. Isn't it, Andy? You guys don't even send out casks unless you know that a bar knows how to handle them and can keep them at the right temperature, have the right
We only
stillage.
have one offsite account.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did the same thing as well because I remember going into a bar in LA and I was with the brewmaster of a certain brewery. We walk into this bar, they have such and such beer on cask, and so he orders it. Oh, hey, I'll take this beer, and the bartender says, "It's warm and it's flat. You sure you want it?" And then, and then literally he's like,
it's called upsell.
and he's like, yes, please. And then she pours him this just terrible pint, and then I just felt so bad for everybody in this whole situation because he gets handed this turd of a pint, and then and I'm just watching this poor woman try to pour this overly carbonated cask. Like everything about it was just the worst, and so there really needs to be a lot of education with cask beer if this is something that we're going to experience, at our local hangout, at our local bar or pub, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully it's my house, but it's depressing. But at the same time, that's what makes trips to Van Nuys interesting, or trips to London interesting, or wherever else. I mean,
Well, and one of the main difficulties that you have, especially with real ale, is in the U.S., especially when it comes to keg beer, you don't really have to treat it very nice. You can take your keg and you can roll it down your hallway, throw it in your cold box, and when as long as it's cold, when you put it on tap, it's pretty much going to be fine.
And that's what I do. I do that.
Yes, just kick them. Just kick them.
But yeah, but the first they're still pouring off pitchers and pitchers of foam because it's all the gas break.
No, we do. I mean, we do pitchers and pitchers. We're just chugging constantly, So there's no waste
I don't
there.
understand what this keg beer is all about.
I'm actually curious. We've kind of been
Never heard
ignoring
of
Chris, but I think Smog City is a brewery that does a lot of addition casks, and they actually do it
Yeah,
pretty
Chris,
well.
justify yourself.
Aren't I the black sheep? I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
What do you have to say for yourself?
Of a brewery that does
I'm just going to bow out
well.
now.
What's Smog City's position on cask? What do you see your cask program as?
Well, I think we do a lot of kind of traditional style casks. Maybe not traditional is the wrong word, but
Well, you do a lot of hops, which is traditional.
right.
so-
I mean, most of the casks that we serve on tap at the brewery go through a beer engine. They're served around 45, 50 degrees. We carb them to 2.5 volumes, a little bit higher. But most of the time, it's a little bow with some extra sauce, hop tonic with some extra Simcoe, Gorilla with some extra whatever, and rarely do we do any specialty casts. So we do them every once in a while, and when I come to events like FirkFest, I like to play around a little bit and experiment and do something exciting.
What did you make today?
I made hop tonic. Well, I call it pho tonic. It is a hop tonic with kaffir, lime leaves, and Thai basil.
Why is it called photonic?
Because it's kind of like the soup pho.
Oh,
Did you get it, Evan?
Oh, because it's a pun.
Oh, I'm so clever.
It's missing the
Super
special
clever.
Vietnamese
Puns aren't
writing though
traditional
on the
Thai.
phone.
I know. I need the little
the actual
mark on top.
fonts
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
So if I can start, hopefully an argument. Andy, what do you think about that?
Puns are not
Ding.
real ale. Real ale is not allowed for puns.
Oh.
Yeah.
No time for any of this tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Serious stuff.
That we could, instead of using isinglass, we just put a whole fish in. We could just do that.
Why not?
Yeah.
That's experimentation.
It adds complexity. Just adds complexity.
It'd be good for a pho beer for sure.
Oh, we should collaborate.
I think I'm busy that day.
Just ferment it in a blowfish and put a tap in its mouth.
I mean, the fact that Smog is bringing, things like dry hop. It's such a messy line about I don't know the way you translate tradition and history into a completely different geographic area with a different historical background of different beers. Do you make a honest homage to the beers that came before from a different geographical region, or do you adapt things and make them your own? Is something that I struggle with at MacLeod of do we just continue making exclusively British beer? That's my passion, and that's what we're going to continue doing. We're not planning on changing that. But do you adapt for your local market, and how do you do that before it changes the essence of this heritage product that you're trying to, bring forward?
Or even trying to make a heritage product at all. I mean, that's kind of the point. I think with the whole cask treatment thing is like that's not the point. Like I said, it's mostly just a way to get weird flavors into your beer. And so that's one thing that I appreciate with what you're doing is that you're very obviously trying to pay tribute to a style and a technique, whereas I think that's pretty rare with most of these breweries.
If I can interject one thing though, because this is definitely Chris can definitely take over on addition of ingredients and thinking about the creation potential of cask, because it's got that big gaping hole in it and it's got to be filled.
Too easy.
We're gonna go ahead and keep it clean.
Something that a lot of American brewers really just need to, or at least Southern Californians or brewers or whatever, need to pay attention to is, you can throw all the history of making a bitter or whatever out the window, but you gotta friggin' learn how to serve casks. How to tap them correctly, how to vent them correctly.
Yeah.
Don't roll the cask around when you're trying to serve it, because the beer's gonna be all cloudy. These are fundamental things. You wouldn't do that to a keg prior to serving. You're gonna shake the thing up and then, put 70 psi on it or something, just because you don't know better. And that's basically what we're seeing with cask ale.
And it's
that
supposed
people
to
are just
sit-
going, well, what could go wrong? It's just cask ale.
I was at a prominent, a big beer bar. I won't call them out on this, but
Good call.
It was for a cask dinner last year, and basically they were bringing out the cask before, carrying it out and tapping it for every course of service. So they weren't sitting in the same place. They were just being brought out, tapped, and poured into pitchers, and then served into different glasses.
Oh man, I
And
serve
it's
beer at Oktoberfest.
You're not getting a good beer. So in terms of one brewer trying to showcase their beer as food pairing, you're basically serving the worst quality beer you can. As a showcase of what your brewery can do.
And not understanding what they're doing. I mean, true cask beer.
It's a very big California brewery that was hosting it.
Look, I'm gonna. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Wait, yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, I am so guilty of doing exactly this. I have done exactly that so many times because it's such a great show. You bring out this thing, you tap it, you have it overly carbonated, so it fucking spills everywhere and it splatters all over the place. And it's a really cool show. It looks cool. And I've done this. And so anyway, on the exact opposite of the spectrum, I don't think that's the way that it should be done. You learn from these situations, or maybe hopefully you evolve. And for me, I've done just about every bad example that we've talked about today. But
you're learning.
But yeah, well, I'm always learning, but it's at a slower rate than most.
Which is why the education is so important. I mean, by rights, a cask should sit for 24 hours in its stillage, in its place before it's served.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to shake it or move it. And I don't know. I know they couldn't do it last year, but
We
can't
don't even
imagine
do that
the
at our
kegs.
brewery.
You don't even do 24?
No.
Well, you have it in your cold room.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll move stuff from the pallet right onto the stillage. There's just this is another thing that American brewers have the potential to redefine cask ale and perfect methods, because having studied in the UK, the UK approach to brewing is a little bit more artisanal than it is in the US, which isn't saying that it's worse or it's they don't know what they're doing or something, but there's sort of passed down knowledge and there's expectations about what things are supposed to happen, and all breweries do things
They're just
different.
not clean, really.
That is true in a lot of examples.
Whatever.
There's very little sanitation of casks prior to filling, but they are clean, but it could be more clean. Anyway, we can refine the industry because we have so much scientific basis and knowledge going into our packaging practices, of reducing DO levels, ensure just all of these different things to ensure low DO pickup, no bacteria, cleaning packaging, making sure everything's purged, all these different things, sanitation procedures that the British breweries don't do. That we get we're able to. We can refine cask ale practices. So there are things that we can do as American brewers that British brewers wouldn't be able to do because they're packaging with a crap ton of yeast going into the cask or really high DO levels, so the casks really need to settle for a really, really long time, or they don't have consistent fining rates, so the casks take longer to settle.
In the UK, it's kind of known that casks have a very short shelf life. Do you use CO2 rebreathers?
We do, but we also purge all the casks prior to filling, which I think also adds to the shelf life. And a lot of breweries don't sanitize their casks prior to filling. So there are different sanitation methods that you can use that you get a longer sanitation time period, I suppose, like window, than you can with other things. Like you could seal up the cask prior to filling, but a lot of them don't do that. And so the beer's not bad. It's not like I don't want to be casting aspersions on British brewing. It's just there's a different way of doing it. Their expectation of shelf life is much shorter. We ideally want to see 3-4 months out of our kegs.
Wow. Whereas British casks, it's days once it's tapped.
Yeah, that's once tapped. That's different, but they want maybe a month out of their cask. The expectation is that cask will be sold and will be tapped within that month. So
it's incredible.
They're concerned about lacto, PDO, Brett getting in their beer. What are those?
I think one of my favorite things is going through the cellarmanship book is if the cask is off or bad in any way, it's not the brewer's fault, it's your fault. You did something wrong. Instead of here in the U.S. where it's oh man, this brewery sucks. They didn't do this right, and then
these lines are dirty. It must be the brewery's fault.
Yeah. But it's just completely different attitude, man. It's great stuff.
Right. It's really. Again, it's just really all about the education and. There's room for both styles. As my writing colleague Sean Inman from Beer Search Party called it California Cask. It's kind of like what we've been doing with it, and it's interesting stuff, and it's based on real cask beer. At least using the cask. Some of it's a little realer than others, but you can't deny there's some great ingredients and some great flavors coming out of them. But you can't really call it a cask beer. I think the education, and I think you guys mentioned it. The book is Cellarmanship
by Patrick
O'Neill. It's only about 120 pages.
It's short.
It's very short. It's more if you're actually in the business, but you learn so much and the glossary and everything. And it's just I think everybody that's trying to do cask should at least go through this and read it and see what the tradition is, and then take it from where you want. Where you will, but the more traditional you'll get, the more interesting you're going to get those kinds of subtle flavors. And another thing I always recommend is if you ever have an opportunity to drink the same beer on keg next to it on cask, and sometimes you can do that at MacLeod's.
Yeah.
It is drink them side by side in A/B comparison, and you'll see what the difference is.
I actually think I said this before, but Sierra Nevada Pale Ale on cask and on keg is one of the best beers for seeing the difference, because it's truly a different beer when you have it on properly done on cask. But I think that beer just I wouldn't think it would work as well as it does, but it is like a perfect cask beer. It's got just enough malt body to just carry it through.
Well, before we wrap it up, I got to know, besides your own brewers, what's your favorite beer that you've had here at FirkFest so far?
Wait, you're saying beside my own?
Besides your own, yes. Yes, I know that everyone loves their own beer.
Look, I'm going to be the first to go for sure. I had 8 glasses of the Session Gap.
You had Platonic,
right?
Lots of Platonic?
8 glasses, and I'm going to drink, hopefully, 10 more? I don't know. Let's see what I can fit in this thing.
Nice. Aaron, what have you had that you liked?
Well, I brewed a beer with MacLeod, so I think that just like rules at MacLeod entirely.
I have a session gap coming from Grant.
Nice.
Actually, I think I'm drinking King Harbor right now. Their IPA is actually really doing well on the cask. I think it's been pretty good.
Right on. Annie, what do you think?
No, you go.
You go first.
Oh shit.
All right, I go. I like the King Harbor. The IPA with the pineapple was really good. Of course, all of Andy's stuff is amazing.
Thank you.
And I really liked Evan's Lebowski Caucasian, the whatever beer that was, with all the
That's not
cocoa
real ale.
nib. And,
Doesn't count.
doesn't count? Oh, shit.
Man, no, it's not real ale. No, you're stupid.
You're gonna ruin it for everyone.
Aside from all of MacLeod's beers, which I think are pretty amazing, particularly the historical ones, one of which Aaron co-brewed. The beer that's knocked me out so far is Monkish's Sela with chamomile and lavender. That is just an amazing beer to begin with. It is just like, I mean, most people agree it's the best Los Angeles beer of 2014. To me, it tastes as complex and as mature as a Belgian brewery that's been open decades, even centuries. There's so much going on in that beer, and the additions of the lavender and the chamomile don't take that away from it. It just accents some more of those flavors. But go for it, kids! If you haven't had it, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, listeners to our show will love.
Lavender,
will know of
lavender
my.
can be a slippery slope, and they did well.
Listeners to our show will know my my love of Monkish for sure. So definitely, John, what have you enjoyed so far?
I had the brewery's sour on the rye with peach and vanilla and cinnamon and every other spice in the cabinet, whatever. It was really good. The vanilla stood out a lot. That's just a great beer in and of itself. The sour on the rye peach variant, I think, of that whole line, sour on the rye line, is really great. So that was really good. A lot of great beers here, though. It's a good event.
It's hard to pick. Personally, I have to say the Salah was obviously way up
that
there
was
for me
good too.
because
Yeah.
like I said, I love Monkish. The Burton Ale from MacLeod, actually. The Burton what?
Thank you. Sea ale.
The Burton. It was
It's been
really
specifically
wonderful.
brewed for this fest.
Yeah, it was
so,
really great.
yeah.
I enjoyed that quite a bit. Jason, what have you had that you liked?
Well, you guys have already kind of picked out a lot of my favorites of the day, but one of the ones that nobody's mentioned yet was I really like the peach tequila Berliner that Golden Road is serving. I really enjoyed that one.
Very nice.
Cool.
Well,
I didn't get to do my beer.
You passed.
The beer that I like.
You passed. All right. Well, what was the beer?
I was passing because I needed to think about it.
Okay.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
He's
So
such a
I
diva.
can't thank everyone enough for like the love for MacLeod that we've gotten. So it's really gratifying that we get this much love and from
Try the
everyone
1939 IPA. It's really good.
It's a perfect fit, though, right? I mean, this is the fest you're born to be at, right? So,
yeah. So like, I've been planning for this since December. Like, seriously.
Right on.
Um,
Six beers, by the way. You had 6 casks here. I think that's more than anybody else. That's
3
very
beers
impressive.
specifically brewed
Actually,
for
we all
this
get to
event.
bring
Yeah.
one home, so it's good.
Yeah.
As a showcase of like what Cask does again to a beer is the unfiltered DBA from Firestone. That's a really cool beer.
You can't deny Firestone Walker, man.
Yeah, that's usually something you only get when you go to Firestone, on
I
tap.
always miss that. I've never been able to go to any of the events where that's on, and it was just a really special treat to be able to try that because there are 2 breweries in the world that still use a Burton Union system, and it's Firestone and Marston's. Like, that's all that's left. That was one of the hugely popular fermentation system for a long time, and it's just a fantastic beer as well, and to be able to try it fresh and to have it show off so well in Cask is just a magical experience.
Definitely.
And it's totally unadulterated. It's like the freshest beer you could possibly get. Like,
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Firestone Walker, another beer another brewery that I talk up on this show probably more than I should.
I think we
I'm
all
not getting
do.
paid by them.
Yeah.
Everyone, thank you for joining us on this panel.
Thank you,
FirkFest,
guys.
Thank you for listening to us. We'll have music again for you soon, I swear.
Thank you.
Once again, our panelists from Cask LA, Aaron Champion. From Noble Ale Works, Evan Price.
Yay!
From MacLeod Ales, Andy Black.
Thank you.
From Squawk City Brewing, Chris Wolowski. From Beer Paper LA and from Celebrator, Tomm Caroll. John Holzer's on the mic.
I'm Greg Nagel.
Jason Harris is on the mic. My name is Ben Becker. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Let's hear it.
Brew the shit out of it.
Peace out.
Craig Niggle. Craig.
1, 2. All right. Give it up for our panel, you guys.
Craig Nagel.
That
Oh,
was
I'm off.
awesome.
I'm off. I'm not off. Am I?
That was a good one.
All right.
That was great.
How's it chilly so far, you guys? All right. Now, you know this is a competition, right?
Well,
If you guys know this is a competition, all right, so you need to vote for your favorite chili over on the entrance area. Blue card.
You know what?